Wednesday.
Yeah, careful if you are out and about today. I'm just peering out the window and I can see the trees blowing about like mad. So take care out there. We'll keep you up to date with what's happening, of course, across the day here on BBC Radio Scotland. You're listening to Mornings with me, Connie McLaughlin, still to come in the next hour.
And a TikTok tip that turned into a real lifesaver for one Ohio mom.
Stick around if you can for this. We're going to be talking about this in the next couple of minutes. It could be a real lifesaver if your child goes missing. You know, that moment of absolute panic. If you're out and about, maybe in a shop or restaurant, and you turn around and they're not there, what do? So we'll talk about that. Plus,
how can I deal with in-laws who refuse to put the heating on?
Yep, she's back. Karen McKenzie returns for the Court of Karen. It is another relevant, but as usual, decisive humdrum conundrum. She's going to be talking about that. Plus, is it time for this?
I need somebody to get it going on in this party.
Says we're talking about consumer matters. Our weekly consumer surgery returns, giving you the chance to get any advice you need on bills, returns, shopping rights, etc, etc. Martin James will be with us to answer all of your questions. Plus,
I tend to try and do some fasting at the beginning of every week as part of a general balanced lifestyle.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about fasting. That was the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak talking about the fact that he does it regularly. But what is it, and is it a good idea? We're going to be joined by expert Amanda Hamilton to tell us about the do's and don'ts of the fasting lifestyle.
All the conversations that matter.
Mornings on BBC Radio Scotland.
Listen on BBC Sounds.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, that, actually, because I think the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak looked a little bit bemused, the fact that people were talking about his diet in the first place. But it's a point of contention. Should you stop eating for a little while? And actually, is it useful? Some people say it's useful for the gut. Other people say, well, actually, in actual fact, you're starving your body. How can that be good? And it sort of promotes dysregulated eating. If you've got any questions for Amanda Hamilton, you can get them in actually right now. 80295. I'll try and put them to her. Or you can give her a call, 08085 92 95 00. That's a little bit later in the programme. Now, this is Give It Up by KC and the Sunshine Band right here on BBC Radio Scotland. Casey and the Sunshine Band, Give It Up here on BBC Radio Scotland. It's 10:10 now. If you lost your child in a shopping centre or at a park or something like that, would you know what to do? One mum in the US has made the news after she used a TikTok tip to shout out a description rather than the name of her child who was lost in a busy museum. Have a listen to this.
Okay, she's not down here. Like, I kind of start to panic a little bit. That's when that light bulb moment went off about that TikTok that I saw the year ago about how to yell at the description and that is actually easier to find your child versus just yelling out their name. It did help find her very quick just because other parents were then looking for that description. You know, they don't know what Lily looks like. And that's when a mom kind of grabs me and she's like, hey, little girl, pink shirt, right? And she was just like hiding behind the little wall, just playing, having, you know, no idea that she was lost.
Okay, is that good advice or not? Would you know what to do if you were in that situation? Would your natural reaction just be to start shouting out your child's name? Maybe it's something you've experienced, actually. Come on, let's have a wee chat about this. Share your story with me. Give me a call, 08085 92 95 00, or you can send me a text, because it is that moment that I would imagine every parent would dread, that feeling of your sort of blood running cold, thinking, oh my goodness, where are they? Dr. Amanda Gummer is a child development expert and founder of goodplayguide.com. Morning, Amanda.
Good morning.
Amanda McKinnon's also with musician and mum of two. Morning, Amanda.
Morning.
We'll do Amanda 1 and Amanda 2. All the Amandas this morning. Paul Armstrong is also with us, a tech expert from the TBD Group. Thanks for coming on, Paul.
Thanks for having me.
Right, Amanda McKinnon, have you had that moment that I'm describing?
I'd love to say no, but the answer is yes.
Oh, goodness. What happened?
I went to Silverburn with my husband and my son, who was then 2. And as I went to the supermarket to do the boring stuff, they went into the TK Maxx, I think it was, beside the kids' court, just for a look around at more fun stuff. And when I went back to meet them after I'd done my bit, my husband was coming out the door with the biggest look of fear in his face that I've ever seen. His eyes were wide open.
Oh, no.
His arms were out to the side, and he's like, have you seen him? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, he just disappeared. And I've never seen a look in his face like that in my life, and I never want to see it again. But I said the best thing to do is go back in, and my stomach was sinking as well, because it was the first time it's ever happened, and we found him really quickly. He was just on one of the aisles, because shops in general are so hard when you're walking up and down to look for them. It's easy to miss them if they're on the end of an aisle or they just walk the opposite way on the other side, and it was just terrifying. And I just wish we had one of those wee leads you get for the wrists, because then you can look away for a matter of seconds. Because he honestly said he only looked away for, 2-3 seconds or something, and then he's just not there. They're so quick, so fast.
What? So he was, did you say 2 at this point?
He was not long being able to walk, I don't think. So it's obviously an adventure for them that as soon as they can walk, they're off.
Yeah, they don't understand the consequences of your being very close to a heart attack whenever something like that would happen. Right. So afterwards, I mean, or during that, did you shout on him? Did you just run about looking for him? What was the first thing that you did?
We ran about looking. That's definitely the first thing we did. We just shouted his name because we were just in the kind of hope that he would come. And also we thought that if you're shouting a child's name loudly, that other parents would be aware if there's a child on their own, then it's that child that you're referring to. So kind of similar to that lady in America. In a way, you're relying on the hope of other people as well to help you. I think it's good what she did. I don't know if people in this country are as kind of open to doing that kind of thing. Not that your child's safety is, less important than you being embarrassed, but it's just it's the first thing that would just come to mind is their name in my mind. But I can't fault what she did.
No, and that's the thing, Dr. Amanda Gummer. It's a split-second reaction, I would imagine, in that situation, that you're not thinking, oh, what did I learn? You're thinking, I just need to get this child back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, parental instincts kick in, don't they? But the advice to shout your child's description rather than their name is a really good one. It serves 2 purposes. If you think your child can hear you, if it's a confined space and it's just busy, then shouting their name is the quickest way to get them to sort of to recognise. But if you think that there's a chance that they may not be within earshot, then shouting their description helps other people find the child, but it also stops somebody with potentially sinister intent from saying, hello, little Lily, or whatever. Mummy says, come with me and we'll do that, So I think not giving strangers your child's name is a sensible advice, absolutely.
I think that's what a lot of people's fears would be, because there's the initial thought of, oh my goodness, they're lost. But then your mind would start to wander, thinking, right, okay, how can I make sure that they are safe in that situation? So your advice would be not to indicate in any way their names. Does that include like putting things on their clothes and making them sort of, I'm not suggesting putting a tag on them, but, making sure that if someone finds them, that they know who they are. The best thing to do with sort of giving them is those wristbands that can have your phone number on them. So you just put the phone number on. You don't even put your name, because you don't want the, oh, is your mum called Sue? Oh, well, she says. So you just want your phone number. I mean, you can write it on their forearm with a Sharpie. That's fine too. But as the kids get older, them having something that they know is, if I'm, kind of a Paddington Bear thing, if found, please look after me. But what I really like about the giving children a bit more responsibility for that, and having them have that, the number on their arm or a bracelet or something, gives parents the confidence to let them be a bit more free. So as children get a bit older, being able to let that sort of release the apron strings a little bit and give them that freedom, because we do have a tendency to mollycoddle our kids and keep them very close and not let them have that independence, which is so important for them when they're growing up. Right, where's the balance between that? Because I'm all with Amanda here with like getting the lead out, getting the reins out. Because where is the balance between allowing them to have that freedom and to explore and to grow and to learn, which is effectively, I'm guessing, what children need, but also keeping them safe?
Yeah, so it's something that happens gradually, and I bulk away from having a sort of, at the age of 8 you should be doing this, at the age of 12 you should be doing this, because it all depends on the kids. So it's really more about doing it in gradual stages. So you're in a shop and you're paying for something and the kids want to go to the next shop, so at age 7, 8, whatever, okay, well, you run ahead to the next shop and I'll be there, I'll pay for this and I'll come and see you. That's a 5-minute window. If they do exactly what they're supposed to and they know what they're doing, and absolutely, as soon as as young as sort of 3 or 4, you can say, if you can't find me, go to the cash desk. Whatever shop you're in, go to the cash desk. Or, if you're in a park, we'll always meet by the benches or something. And you have those rules that are just sort of basic rules wherever you go. And the kids learn those really early. But once you can build the trust up gradually. So it starts off being 5 minutes, then it's 10 minutes, then it's 15, and it's I'm going to sit here and have a coffee in a cafe. You can go in those shops on that, along that row, and I'll see you, back here in half an hour. And you just build that trust up, and kids desperate for that independence. They want to feel more grown up, and and the minute they break that trust, then you reset, and it's like, well, I can't trust you now. We have to go back to the beginning, and that teaches them to be sensible, and a lot of it is about, making sure that children are equipped with those skills to know that somebody in a shop behind a till is a safe person to speak to. As is a police officer or whatever, but you don't just go off with a random stranger. And
Paul, there's thankfully some tech that exists to help with this. Controversial, some people might say, in terms of tracking devices and stuff like that. But what's on offer, and how do they work?
Yeah, the main one you've got is what they call a Bluetooth tag, which is essentially, lots of people don't just put them on people, if that makes sense. You lose an old person as well, they're quite useful. They put them on gadgets they lose around their house because the tech's become so sophisticated now. You sort of use your phone as a compass to find them. So you're like literally 20 meters in that direction, you'll find it. So they're quite sort of useful, and they're very smart. So they've got a few security features as well. So about the size of a 2p piece probably, or 20p, depending on which size you're sort of going for. And some are very flat, so you can put them in wallets or very sort of like, inside a coat pocket and they wouldn't know. But the argument is you can also put them on a child's person using a sort of like bracelet type system as well. So lots of smart ways of sort of using them. And essentially it's like an invisible barrier. So if they go outside of a certain area, then you'll get an alarm, a text message, and some also call you and that sort of thing. So they're quite sort of useful in that sort of sense. And God forbid somebody did get taken or something like that, or something bad sort of happened, you would be able to sort of track them as long as that tracker stayed on that person as well. So the best advice is to have them in two places, one on a child and the other in, say, like a bag or something in case that gets dumped.
Do you think there is a bit of a stigma attached to being the overprotective parent, putting the tag on? I mean, I've got one for my dog. I mean,
dogs are a great example. Yeah. Yes, I think there is. I think some people think that it's an overboard sort of thing. I think the argument is, does the child sort of know enough on their own to sort of do it? And is it just a backup for people? Other people totally could go, it might make them a bit more neurotic about it and that sort of thing. Not everywhere is as safe as everywhere. So sometimes it's a bit of peace of mind for both people. But I think argument is it needed, and sort of does the child have the basic skills? Is it just a backup, or are you using it sort of more to sort of help your anxiety? A lot of people have different arguments for it.
Amanda McKinnon, do you now openly speak to your kids about the dangers and what happens? Do you have meeting points and things like Amanda was saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was drilled into my head when I was a child over 40 years ago that if anyone says, "Oh, come to my car to see my puppies," or "Come to my car and I've got sweeties for you," my mum always said that don't listen to them unless I have said, then it's a fake person. So I do tell my kids things like that as well, to never do it. And speaking of the trackers, I've actually got one on my son.
Have you?
Now, do you know
where do you put it?
So I've just started. I just put it in a school bag, and it's just for peace of mind of knowing where he is, because he now walks home on his own. And sometimes I get home and he's not there, and I do trust him. He's extremely sensible, but it's just in case he's gone. He's still at the school, maybe playing with his friends, or he's just in a different road. I just want to know where he is. So it's just a kind of peace of mind. But when he's a teenager, I think that'll be a definite no-no.
It's funny. My husband and I have got these on your phone. It's like you sort of the find your phone type thing, and you can see where each other are. But it's used mainly for how long you're going to be home so that we can make dinner. These small, so you don't have to spend another 5 minutes making a phone call or whatever. Where are you? It's just you can see, right, well, that's where you are. It's just these things are just helpful for general day-to-day life. But I can see in that situation when it's children, it can be so useful. Listen, really interesting conversation and really insightful as well. Thank you so much, all of you, for taking part this morning.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Amanda Gummer, their child development expert and founder of goodplayguide.com. Amanda McKinnon, musician, mum of two, and Paul Armstrong, their tech expert from the TBD group, talking about those ways that you can try and keep your children safe. Some really good advice. Hopefully you found that useful. It's 10:24.
Let's compare Sega Saturn's games to games on Plaything. Sega has a long history of creating true arcade games. Plaything's maker has no such history. Sega Saturn gives you arcade graphics and gameplay that could only come from the power of 3 processors. Plaything has only 1 processor. Sorry, Plaything, you're not worthy.
You're listening to Mornings with me, Connie McLaughlin. I'm with you until midday today. Still to come. We'll be be joined by Audrey Vandermeer to tell us about her research into memory. So apparently if you write things down, you have more chance of sort of keeping them in your brain rather than just like typing it down or putting it in your phone. So we're going to be looking into that and why maybe we should be doing a little bit more of that. Plus our weekly consumer surgery returns. Our expert Martin James will be here to answer all of your questions. You can send a text right now, 80295, or give him a call, 08285 92 95 00.
All the conversations that matter.
Mornings on BBC Radio Scotland.
Listen on BBC Sounds.
I'm just trying to say it.
Dream on, dreamer, life gets in your way. Dream on, dreamer, life gets in your way. There you go, whole day and night, up in the clouds, flying so high. You try your best to stretch your mind beyond reality and sense and rhyme. You see things that make your big heart sing, like the flowers, trees, and birds and pretty things. Hate to put your 2 feet on the ground. You like to step aside, then you release yourself and fly. Dream on, dreamer, life gets in your way. If the life you live is a spinning top of pain, then you can dream on, dreamer, life gets in your way. If you live to learn, you'll be lucky one day. Now, the basic pages of your mind are so complete, like seeing colors black and white. Do you realize that you look so spaced out? You made your peace with the need to be free without a doubt. Yeah, I frown 'cause something don't look right. It's the twinkly twinkle star that's in your eyes. Hate to put your 2 feet on the ground, so go on and step aside and release yourself and fly. Dream on, dreamer, life gets in your way. If the life you live is a spinning top of pain, then you can dream on, dreamer, life gets in your way. If you live to learn, you'll be lucky one day. Over and dream on, dreamer, life gets in your way. If the life you live is a spinning top of pain, then you can dream on, dreamer, life gets in your way. If you live to learn, you'll be lucky one day. Dream on, dreamer, dream on, dreamer. Dream on, dreamer.
Well, and it's coming up to 10:30. I hope you're doing well. She's back. There we go. Time for another humdrum conundrum with our judgmental friend of the show, Karen McKenzie. Every week we deal with one of life's minor irritations, a conundrum guaranteed to divide and even grind your gears. And Karen McKenzie will give her thoughts to you, the jury. You'll have the final say. But before we do all of that, I'd also like to say we're joined not only by Karen, but Libby is with us as well. Libby, how you doing?
I'm good, Connie. I'm looking forward to getting my teeth into this one. Oh, I love a conundrum.
Well, listen, on talking about teeth, I've just been at the dentist.
Oh,
so if I sound a bit funny, it's because of that. It's not going to stop me talking, I just say. But I sound like I've got a bit of a lisp, so go easy on me. I'll get it in there now.
Right, okay. I need to ask both of you, right? We were talking this morning, I don't know if you heard the phone in
Andy Murray.
earlier. We were talking about
Yes.
quitting.
Yes.
Have you ever had a time, Libby MacArthur, actor extraordinaire, that you've quit anything?
Yeah, good question, Connie. I did listen in because I love Andy to bits. I love him like my brothers. I've quitted people.
Well, that's a good thing.
Do you know, you kind of outgrow
Dump them.
certain folk. You just kind of, you know, and when love has stopped being served at the table, you stand up and leave.
Yeah.
So there's folk where I've just gone, I just don't have the time and energy to rescue myself from every bloody
I know.
comment. And so, yeah.
Seep the energy out of the...
Yeah, and there is such a thing, you know, that vampire energy that's take the marrow for your bones and walk over your recumbent husk, you know. So
here we are.
Yeah,
so, I've quitted folk, relationships, just because I have some fabulous people in my life and I don't spend enough time with them. So
Aye.
why would I?
Karen?
Yeah. I quit years ago, did the Glasgow to Edinburgh cycle, and it was a 100-mile one. And at 50 miles in, oh my God, the sleet, the hail, and it was stabbing your face in that way. And I thought, you know what? There is no point in going on with this. So I thought, is it okay to give up? And I thought, yeah, it is. And actually, I was a producer on this programme at the time, and I thought, I'm going to do an item on that. Is it okay to give up? And it was on and going through that item that I met Stephen, who I've been living with for the past 10 years. So
And
there we are.
Thankfully, you're not giving up on that.
No. Early days. Is it it's 10 years in?
I mean, that's early days.
Never say never. No, I'm joking. No, joking.
Right, okay. We've, speaking of giving up, let's not give up just yet, right? Because we have a conundrum to solve. Shall we have a listen to today's?
Yes.
I'm visiting my husband's parents for 4 days, and although they are comfortable when it comes to money, my mother-in-law refuses to put the heating on. The house is in the north of Scotland, so it can get very cold. The temperature in the house stays at around 14 or 15 degrees. My husband has tried to speak to her about it, but I'm usually just given an extra blanket, and he doesn't push it. The others don't seem to be bothered by it, but I don't deal with the cold well, and it really affects my enjoyment of the visit. How should I deal with them refusing to put the heating on?
Karen, what would you do in that situation if you're sitting in someone's house? We've probably all been there, haven't we? We were freezing, but we're too polite to say.
I'd be asking if they'd managed to source a heating engineer to find out why the heating was broken. Because it feels like it's clearly not on. I'd be giving presents of thermal vests and hot water bottles. And I think it's just, they're not on the breadline, right? They've got money. So I think they're just tight. And if they don't feel the cold, and when you invite guests round, you've got to be you've got to do it for them, if not for yourself, for God's sake. And also, turn the heating on in the wintertime for the sake of the house. You could get damp, you could get mould. Don't be so blinking tight and get the heating on. So I think I'd have to sort of... if my husband wasn't prepared to mention it, not that I've got a husband, but if this husband wasn't prepared to mention it, then I would be gently asking if it was okay to put the heating on because I don't suffer well in the cold. That I get Raynaud. Is it Raynaud you call it? You know when your fingers go, oh my God, they go white at the end.
Yeah.
I think it's just really bad circulation and it's painful and it kicks in really easily. So I think I'd just be making them feel bad.
Libby, she puts a good point across.
Yeah, but I'd say to this daughter-in-law, talk about dropping a hint. They've got the heating on all the time when they're not there. No, I'm only kidding. No. No, they know you're freezing. I would say to her, they know. And not only do they know that you know that they know that you know.
What?
Right. What are you going to do? Shake your fist at her? It's just not going to work. I think if you accept the hospitality of your in-laws, then, suck it up. Buy yourself the thermals. You know what I think actually is going on here? Well, what might be going on here is that she's feeling peeved on purpose because she's actually looking for an excuse to make her in-laws wrong. But no, that's another side segues. What I think is going on here is that quite often, and I saw it in my own mum and dad, there's a kind of fear of running up bills that we don't understand, because we can be kind of cavalier about things and then go, oh my God, I've had the heating on and here's my bill and all. But I remember my mum and dad being almost a wee bit kind of, you know, it was almost like they kowtowed to the idea that they couldn't quite run up debt, or they couldn't quite run up. So they never did anything. They were always kind of, you know, I remember saying to you and Kay once, Karen, the gift of thrift, and you both said to each other, what's she talking about? But there was a lot of self-esteem around being thrifty, and you know.
Yeah, and there's being miserable.
I know, but maybe that's what she just can't.
And I don't mean miserable as in tight.
This
I
is
mean miserable in cold. There is nothing. There's a lot worse. I know that. There is nothing worse.
I can't
than
stand
being
it. Karen.
cold.
I was brought up in a house with one electric fire, with a kiddie on coal and 4 bars, and you had corned beef in your shins and your back was cold. I can't stand being cold, but it's her house, it's her bills. You've got to just suck it up and see if you really want to see your in-laws, and you know, choose it or lose it. Don't go. If they invite you, go, oh, that would be really lovely to see you, and that would be great, and I'm not going to come because I'm cold. And then say, having said that, I really want to see you, so I've booked us cheap tickets to the Costa del Roasty Toasty, and we're all going there for a long, or come to my house where the heating's on. You know, at the end of the day, it's her bill, it's her house.
I know
Choose it or lose
that,
it.
but I mean, for heaven's sakes, I come back to, and I appreciate that electricity and the gas and all the rest is going up, right? But the thing is, it clearly says in this, they're comfortable, right? They have money.
We don't know that though for definite. That's just her interpretation, surely.
That they're comfortably living. Well, comfortable, they're not on the breadline.
But Karen, you know,
that was a bit of a
but Karen, you're right. You're right. That, you know, it would be rubbish. It would be rubbish to go and visit your in-laws and be in a cold house. I could.
I'd be filling up a hot water bottle. I would be. I'd be sitting there with a hot water bottle, visibly one on the outside and one under my jumper.
Yeah, but what are you going to do? You're just going to make her wrong and make her feel rubbish. Make him and her feel rubbish.
Yeah. Okay.
You can't shake your fist at your hosts. You really can't.
Well, this is what we want the answer to today, right? Do you agree with Karen, who's saying, oh, for goodness sake, just crack the heating on?
You can't function when you're cold.
If it's only even for a couple of days or a day or something when the people are
if
there,
you've got guests
that's
round.
fine. Or actually, Libby's saying, someone else's business.
They know you're cold and they're doing nothing about it.
And they're actually saying, well, maybe they don't feel the cold as much. Who knows? 80295, which side of the debate do you sit on? Let us know, and we'll get the result of this a little bit later in the programme. Good to speak to both of you, as always.
Bye.
All the conversations that matter.
Mornings on BBC Radio Scotland.
Listen on BBC Sounds.
It's a tricky one, that, isn't it? Because especially in the current climate, whenever people are maybe struggling with their energy bill, the two of them are looking at me going out the door saying, no, it's not tricky at all. But listen, I want to hear from you on this. 80295, where do you sit on this Court of Karen debate? Who do you agree with? Is it Libby or is it Karen? Right, our consumer surgery, though, is back to help you look after, well, get the most out of your money. Our consumer expert, Martin James, is here to answer all of your questions. Morning to you, Martin.
Good morning, Connie.
Where do you sit on that debate? Would you tell them to put the heating on, or would you just sit sort of uncomfortably in someone's house?
Oh, well, I love a heated debate, no pun intended. But that was, I really didn't mean that one. But put the heating on. This is the question I'm asked loads and loads at the moment by people who are worried about not being able to afford the energy bills and things along those lines. But my argument is, if your finances are that bad, energy companies are supposed to be helping you. So put the heating on, don't freeze, and then put the ball into the court of the energy company. Get them to come up with some solutions for you. But if you're just too stingy, I don't have a solution for that one.
Right, okay. We'll find out what the listeners say to that a little bit later. Right, okay. We are talking about car insurance this morning because I was reading this article about young drivers and the risk fraud to try and save some money on the cost of car insurance. What are they doing, and what is actually being classed as fraud?
Do you know, I feel a bit sorry for younger drivers as well. I mean, I still remember being young. It's quite a long time ago now, but I still remember what it's like. And you come sometimes when you look in the news, it feels like they're constantly being blamed for things. So there's a big story that's been dinged around. It's kind of a traditional one about insurance fronting, which sounds very complicated and serious. But this is basically where it's not actually younger people who are actually committing the fraud unintentionally or deliberately. It's usually their parents. Insurance bills for younger people, both boys and girls, can be exceptionally expensive. I mean, really just prohibitively. So it's not even worth driving sometimes. So what some parents tend to do is to front the insurance contract. That basically means that they put themselves down as the main driver on the insurance contract, because then it'll be lower. And then they put the kid on as the named driver, which means that they can use the car, but they aren't the principal person who's driving it. Now, the problem is this is illegal and nobody knows about it. It just seems like a good way to actually kind of reduce the bills. And lots of parents say to me, well, do you know what? I mean, it's, you know, I'm driving the car and they're driving the car, so they're being more sensible. But insurance companies do not take this lightly, and they take a very dim view of it as well. So unfortunately, if you are tempted to do it, or you are doing it, it is illegal. You probably won't get sent to prison, don't worry. But in the big scheme of things, you might get a claim invalidated, which defeats the point of having the insurance in the first place.
So what would be the definition of who would be the main driver? Like how often would you need to drive the car, would the younger person need to drive the car to be deemed as the main driver and that being wrong? And who would know?
So that's such a good question, isn't it? In the main, what happens is when we're asked questions by insurance companies, because we're human beings, we get a bit flustered. It's a bit, I would imagine, like being on the stand in a court case. People tend to kind of blurt stuff out when insurance companies kind of question them the details, and that's how they get you. But as a rule, the main driver, this is terminology, if the main driver is the person who is driving the car most of the time. Now, insurance companies will be able to work out, you know, if that is actually you driving to work or not, or if it's you doing 70 miles an hour up and down some tiny roads, which is what lots of younger drivers are accused of. The named driver is the person who you put onto your policy, like your kids. It can be an older person as well. And there's also multi-cover as well, which is where you can get lots of insurance policies, separate ones, but you all kind of bring them in together. Now, one of the other things that reduces insurance charges is getting a black box fitted. You might have heard of this. Yeah, the telematics boxes. I'm in two minds about this, because it's all a bit dystopian. But they monitor your driving, which means the insurance company really can figure out who's actually doing the driving or not. It does reduce costs significantly, but then you've got to kind of factor in the fact that they will know an awful lot about you, including where you're going, what you're doing, and if you're driving at certain times. So there's lots and lots of things that come into the equation here, none of which is tackling the main issue, which is why it's outrageously expensive for younger people to get insured.
With that sort of situation, I mean, how much would you roughly be looking to save if you decided to get one of these boxes and fit it in your car?
So I did a bit of research for the show on this, and the official guidance, and you know, when you speak to the trade bodies and insurance companies, they kind of say it's, you know, it's between £700 and £900 a year if you're 20.
Wow, that's a lot, isn't it?
It is a lot, and yet if you have a look in the news, you'll see cases of younger people being quoted £3,000. There was one last week with a young girl. She was in 24, sensible driver, got quoted £9,000.
For what kind of car?
It was just a normal car, and there was nothing like particularly exciting or sporty about it. And she'd been driving for 2 years. The problem is when you put these details into comparison sites, they can sometimes be a bit wacky and pull out some really, really weird quotes, which gives you the impression that you're never ever going to get covered. It is actually possible out there. There are some good policies out there for younger people if you do shop around. But it is unfair, I think, that we often tar younger people with the same brush. Yes, statistically, they are in some senses likely to cause more accidents, but it's only a small percentage. And I get lots of very sensible young people who are very upset about this. Rather controversially, older people are actually more likely to have crashes after a certain age as well. So there's a lot of questions about the discrepancy between insurance costs there as well.
Okay, just finally then on this point, because you're going to come back for the wider surgery a little bit later. And by the way, if you want to give Martin a call, you can give him a call. We can do it right now, actually, 08085 92 95 00, or send him a text on 80295. So anything at all, it can be related to what we're talking about, which is car insurance, or any sort of other consumer-related issues you've got, whether it's you want to, I don't know, talk about issues you have with taking something back to shops, or loads of different areas that Martin will be able to help you with. And if there's something sort of burning in your mind, then this is your chance to do it. But apart from the black box, are we calling it that?
Yeah, you can say black box recording. It sounds a bit better. Telematics is a bit weird.
Yeah, it makes you think about a plane in some way, and we don't want to be doing that route. But is there anything else apart from that younger people can do to try and reduce the cost of car insurance? That's legal, clearly, if we know this is illegal. Just want to put that out there.
Yes, that is very true. I'm often torn when I'm doing this show.
Exactly.
What I can say, what I can't. Unfortunately, there aren't, a huge amount of ways you can do that. You can do the official process, which is basically putting your child on your insurance policy. But do bear in mind that the insurance company will grill you to see who is really driving most of the time. I would say to them as well, the question that you just put, which is absolutely spot on, define who's the main driver. Is it 60-40? Is it 70-30? How can you tell whether you're breaking the rules? If you put the question back to the insurance company, you're giving them the responsibility for telling them how the policy should work. So that means they can't turn around to you further down the line.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point, actually. You'll be back, Martin, a little bit later in the programme. As I say, I'll just reiterate that number, 08085 92 95 00, or you can send Martin a text right now on 80295.
There are lots of good reasons to go with Sega Saturn instead of Pretendo. We call them games. Sega Saturn has tons of them. Pretendo has just a few. It does beg the question, do you want to play or twiddle your thumbs? Face it, Pretendo, you weren't worth waiting for.
You're listening to Mornings, still to come.
I tend to try and do some fasting at the beginning of every week as part of a general balanced lifestyle.
We have spoken and heard quite a lot about fasting in the last wee while. That was the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak talking about what he does. We're going to be joined by expert Amanda Hamilton later to tell us the do's and don'ts of the fasting lifestyle. If you've got anything you want to ask Amanda about fasting, whether it might work for you, you can send her a text on 80295. Plus, as I said before, it's still time to get your questions in to Martin James, our consumer rights expert.
Get in touch with BBC Radio Scotland.
You can call our free phone number on 08085 92 95 00.
You can text on 80295. Network charges apply.
Mornings on BBC Radio Scotland.
We're going to be talking about how to make sure you can remember things shortly. Stick around for that. But this is You're the One That I Want, Olivia Newton-John, John Travolta.
I got chills, they're multiplying, and I'm losing control, 'cause the power you're supplying, it's electrifying. You better shape up, 'cause I need a man, and my heart is set on you. You better shape up, you better understand.
You're listening to BBC Radio Scotland. How you doing? That's a song I've not heard for a long time, to be fair. Olivia Newton-John there and John Travolta. You Are the One That I Want, obviously from the classic movie Grease. Now, we're going to be talking about memory writing shortly. That way that it can be quite thought about as quite old school, that you have to write things down, and that's the way that you take stuff in. Are you like that? Because I know I definitely am, where if I need to remember something from a work point of view, I make sure I get a pen and a bit of paper and I write down all that I need to remember. Because if I do it on a laptop or if I do it on my phone, it goes out my head as quick as it goes in, right? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, actually. Are you sort of old school? Maybe you write a diary, or you've got sort of notes that you take on certain things, and it's the only way that it actually goes into your head. 80295 is the best way to do that. We are also, I mentioned a little bit earlier, we've got our consumer surgery a little bit later, and Martin James is actually still with us. We're going to get Audrey van der Meer, who's the Professor of Neuropsychology, in just a second. We're having a bit of problems with her line. So Martin James is back with us. Martin, do you know what I wanted to ask you about, which I think is quite important, and we'll go into this maybe in a little bit more detail later on. But the deadline today, I look at the clock and it is Wednesday the 31st of January, which for a lot of people means nothing, but for an awful lot of people it means deadline day for your tax. So advice on what people should be doing if they're still scrambling about trying to make sure that they hit the deadline.
Well, do you know, this tax is that one subject that fills us all with dread. It fills me with dread. It's really, really frustrating because, as anyone who's tried to call HMRC will know, the whole process can be exceptionally frustrating. Now, unfortunately, as is always the case when it's one organisation that basically controls everything, it's not that easy to negotiate with them or even contact them. So if you've left it till the last minute, first things first, don't panic. You're not alone. A couple of weeks ago, HMRC themselves estimated that 5 million people out of the 12 million who were supposed to hadn't filed yet. So there's going to be a massive rush.
So in that situation then, I mean, what's the sort of protocol if you can't get through? Because I was actually reading a thing yesterday, it was saying actually if their advice is don't call over the next couple of days because it's going to take, a long time to get your call answered, if indeed you do get your call answered. So what do you do?
So, yeah, absolutely. And in fact, they switched off the telephone line for 3 months a year or so ago.
Yeah.
Would that happen with any other service? I'm just saying it. So I'm not a massive fan of HMRC. So what I would say is go grit your teeth, go onto the website and just try and log something online at the moment. Now, again, obviously, we alluded to this before, Connie, and I would never advise anyone to do anything that was obviously inappropriate or breaking the rules or lying. But, this is a very complicated time. So it's possible that, some processing problems will happen. So if you haven't quite finished or you're struggling, there's nothing wrong with getting in touch with the tax office and using their online contact facility to say that you've not been able to file in time, that you're struggling to get hold of someone who can help, or that you've not been able to get certain questions answered. That may help you further down the line. So it's worthwhile just kind of, dropping that into them. Now, people will also experience another frustration that happens to me every single year. When you try to log into the HMRC website, you'll be asked for a range of numbers. So do yourself a favour, try and find your government gateway password. I think it's a 14-digit number. It might be lurking in your email somewhere. Dig out your any letters or documents that you've received from the tax office. You'll need to provide kind of various reference numbers as well. That way you're not going to find the process as frustrating. If you are struggling to find a way to actually contact the company, look for the complaint facility that allows you to send an online complaint, but it can just be a message saying, please help me. For some reason, I can't finish this. I just need your help. Unfortunately, they are not the best negotiators when it comes to fines, when it comes to interest for not filing on time. But you could negotiate with them and say, look, I would have been able to have done this, but I couldn't speak to anyone who could help me. So remember, be as nice as possible and see what you can negotiate.
Okay, if you've got any questions about this, about your return or anything else sort of tax related at this time of the year, which I think for a lot of people can be quite confusing, 80295. Martin's going to be back after 11 o'clock and we can go into much more detail about that. I did say a little bit earlier, we were talking about memory, which I think is something that's... I don't know if you just get to a certain age and you start to forget people's names, start to forget things that you should be remembering. But Audrey van der Meer is with us. She's a professor of neuropsychology. And she has taken part in a study or produced a study that suggests, Audrey, that it's better to write things down rather than actually sort of type it into a keyboard. You're noticing a big difference in how you hold information. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair to say. Because when you're writing things down, you're actually using your body and your senses to a much greater extent. And then you open up the brain to form connections between the different areas in the brain that are active when writing by hand. And then it's easier to remember the stuff that you've written down and to learn from it.
So, I mean, how much would we need to start, writing down? So would you suggest that or what types of things do you think we should write down to make sure that we remember them? I'm assuming you're not suggesting that we walk about just with a notepad all the time, taking things in.
No, we're not.
Probably do that.
We're not recommending to go back to the Stone Age, and we live in a digital world, and that's here to stay, of course. But there is some evidence that taking lecture notes, for instance, are best done by hand because when using a keyboard at a lecture, it's very tempting to type down everything that the lecturer is saying, but you're literally almost typing in the blind. The information is coming in through your ears and it's coming out through your fingertips, and you're not processing the incoming information at all. So, but when writing by hand, when taking lecture notes by hand, you cannot it's impossible to write down everything the lecturer is saying. So you are forced to process the information, to link it to things that you already know, and you can only write down a few keywords and produce some arrows and boxes and underlinings. But then when you go back to your own personal notes to learn for the exam, for example, then it all comes back to you because you remember it better and you've made the notes your own. That's why it doesn't help reading somebody else's notes on a lecture that you couldn't attend, because they're this person's personal notes.
Yeah, and their thought process, I guess, might be different to yours as well. Does that mean then that written diaries, for example, and calendars, things like that, are a better idea than sort of a digital calendar?
Yeah, I would say so. Also, making a grocery list, if you write it down by hand and imagine the smells and the forms and the colors of the things that you need, then you're using your body through the writing and all your senses through, if it's like oranges you need, then you image an orange, and then it will be easier to remember to pick it up from the store when you're grocery shopping.
So interesting. Have you got a good memory? Just briefly?
Yes, I do, actually.
Right, okay. I'm going to fully take this on board because I think that's something that, especially that idea of going into the supermarket and you go in and you're thinking, right, I know exactly what I need. You maybe make a note on your phone or something, and then actually before you know it, you forgot to check the thing that you've brought in the first place. So actually writing it down could be really interesting and maybe really helpful. Thank you so much for that, Audrey. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Bye.
Audrey van der Meer, they are Professor of Neuropsychology. See, sometimes the old ways actually work out better for you. So if you've got a notepad and pen in front of you, this is your moment to say it's fine. It's fine to write stuff down. Where do you sit on this? Plus, it's time for this.
Girl, I need somebody to get it going on in this party.
Our consumer rights expert Martin James will be here giving you the chance to ask for any advice on bills, returns, shopping rights. We were talking about tax as well, given the fact that it is the 31st of January, the self-assessment deadline. Any questions you want to ask him about that, you can do. And
I tend to try and do some fasting at the beginning of every week as part of a general balanced lifestyle.
you might have heard a lot about fasting in the past week. The result of the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, who you heard talking there, admitting he is a regular faster. But it is a good idea. Is it a good idea? We're going to be joined by expert Amanda Hamilton to tell us about the do's and don'ts of intermittent fasting. You can give Amanda a text right now if you want to ask her a question about that. 80295 is the best way to do it.
All the conversations that matter.
Mornings on BBC Radio Scotland.
Listen on BBC Sounds.
I've been trying to do it right. I've been living a lonely life. I've been sleeping here instead. I've been sleeping in my bed. Sleeping in my bed. So show me family, all the blood that I will bleed. I don't know where I belong. I don't know where I went wrong. But I can write a song. I belong with you, you belong with me, my sweetheart. I belong with you, you belong with me, my sweetheart. I don't think you're right for him. Think of what it might have been. Took a bus to Chinatown. I'd be standing on Canal and Bowery. She'd be standing next to me. I belong with you, you belong with me, my sweetheart. I belong with you, you belong with me, my sweetheart. Love, we need it now. Let's hold focus on we're bleeding now. I belong with you, you belong with me, my sweetheart. I belong with you, you belong with me, my sweetheart.
The Lumineers, hey ho, here on BBC Radio Scotland. Now, it is time. The Court of Cairn's back in session as we hear the verdict on this week's conundrum. It has definitely got you talking. We've been discussing heating after some in-laws refused to turn their heating on. But as ever, the final verdict, of course, lies with you, the jury. Let's remind you of the entire case before we put it to the court.
I'm visiting my husband's parents for 4 days, and although they are comfortable when it comes to money, my mother-in-law refuses to put the heating on. The house is in the north of Scotland, so it can get very cold. The temperature in the house stays at around 14 or 15 degrees. My husband has tried to speak to her about it, but I'm usually just given an extra blanket, and he doesn't push it. The others don't seem to be bothered by it, but I don't deal with the cold well, and it really affects my enjoyment of the visit. How should I deal with them refusing to put the heating on?
Karen Mackenzie's back with me. Lots of people having their say on this as per.
That's what we want. We want to hear your opinions.
Right. Who's agreeing with you?
Sheila's a woman of few words. I'm with Karen. It's all I need, Sheila.
That
It's
is.
great.
Well,
Thank you.
If you had more of that, you'd be delighted.
Yes. Anne's saying it's bad for your health living in a cold house. I'd leave. I'm with you, Anne. I'd leave every time.
Can't stand the cold.
Oh, you speak up now.
I know, because I've decided I'm going to take some sort of neutral approach when it comes to this. I've decided that. That's my new thing.
So that's not neutral now. You're speaking up.
No, at the time, I was neutral when Libby was here.
Go on, be a devil. Speak out.
I would hate it. I hate being freezing. My worst
So
thing.
do I. It's just miserable, isn't it? Ugh.
Can't be doing with being cold.
I
I'd
don't
rather
wanna be-
just deal with the consequences.
Yeah, of not speaking to the in-law, falling out with them.
No, I've absolutely been terrified when your bill comes in thinking, oh no. But I was warm at the time. So.
Yeah. It's not as if it's for all the year. It's just only 11 months.
Exactly. Maybe 11 and a half. Right, okay. Who else has been on with you?
Those 2 weeks in May. I'd make an excuse. Someone else is saying, don't know who this is. I'd make an excuse not to go. Spending days in a cold house would be absolute misery. I feel so sorry for people who have to choose between heating and eating. No, you're absolutely right there.
Yeah, I think, and we've got to sort of stress the fact in this conundrum, the people, the in-laws.
We're comfortable.
Yeah, it's not an issue about.
And they're heating as well, apparently. But yes.
This texter's been on, there's no name on it, who just says, I agree with Libby, being too hot in your own home is horrible. Put a jumper on. Right, there is a balance though, isn't there?
There's been too hot and there's been comfortable. Yes.
You don't need to walk about with a jacket on or a hat, or you can see your breath.
No, see your breath.
14 degrees in a house, surely you'd be able to see your breath, no?
Oh, that's just horrible. I mean, I have been known through the day to wear my hat. It's a good look, isn't it? And my nose gets red like a drinker's nose, you know, that way. And I keep feeling it. And like I'm doing just now, actually it's really warm in the studio. But when your nose gets cold, when your nose starts to go red, you really need to put the heating on. Otherwise, if somebody comes to the door, they'll think you've taken to the bottle of wine, bottle of Bucky through the day.
So what you're saying is that you walk about the house like wee Willy Winky?
Well, only if I know that nobody's coming to that.
You never know, though. That's another conundrum, by the way, about coming to your house unannounced.
Oh, I think we've done that.
Yeah, I was going to say, has that been done before?
We have done that, yes.
Right, okay. We've got someone who's sitting in the middle, Mary, actually, from Hunt Light. Morning, Mary. Put on enough heat, but don't pander to house guests who don't wear enough clothes. Now, what's your definition, Mary, of not enough clothes?
Being
I wonder.
scantily clad, coming in with your little vest top and your shorts on. No, that's not going to happen. It certainly wouldn't be happening in our house.
No.
Yeah. In the kitchen, you'd be fine. In the living room, it's cold. So, no. Nah. You've got to be comfortable, haven't you? I have to say, yeah, I have been known to go to somebody's house in the not too distant past with a hot water bottle and my hat and my jacket on and sit there talking to them. And they're fully aware that I'm freezing, but they maintain their house, or they keep their house at 15 degrees, and it's Baltic, but they have a laugh. And I know what it's going to be like, so I just have to thole it.
There's a flip side to that, though, because sometimes I think if anyone comes into my house, they think it's too warm. And there's people sitting sweating. You know when people start to derobe, that it's maybe time to turn the temperature down a little bit.
You're dehydrating in a corner. Just get them glasses of water.
That's a way for people that you don't necessarily want to visit you to leave. Maybe that's what it is.
Tell them they'll lose weight, sweat it off.
Yeah, certainly. Right, okay. Keep your thoughts coming in on this one. Are we putting this... I mean, what's our final verdict on this thing? Because I feel as if we're
clearly I'm right.
All right, cool. I would say probably dependent on if we're doing this purely on the texts that are coming in, which is clearly what we're meant to do here.
Then more people agree with me.
Yeah, then Karen's
Yeah,
on.
Connie, I think there's no argument here. No. Not in this case.
Right, okay.
And especially if you're on my side as well. Yep,
I am.
Job done.
I am on this one.
Case
today.
closed.
Poor Libby, she's on her way home thinking, those two. Right, okay. What's the plans this week?
Marmalade. It's marmalade season. So I got a load of marmalade oranges, so I'm going to start making marmalade this afternoon.
I wouldn't know that was marmalade season in January.
Oh, it's very short actually, because I was up at 6:30 the other day, off to the fruit market to be told that the season had finished. It was all shut. And I was like, "You are having a laugh." And he said mid-December, first week in January. That's shorter than it was last year or the year before, but I did manage to get them at a local greengrocer's. So I got 4 kilos, so I'm off to start making my marmalade.
Every day's a school day for you, Karen McKenzie.
I love it. I love it.
Always good to speak to you. Enjoy your marmalade making.
Thank you. See you, Connie.
Soon.
on BBC iPlayer.
It's just one of those days, you know, when people say your name's on the cup.
That's what the game is all about.
How the Scottish and Irish, they have this passion, changed football.
You know, George Best up there with Messi, Ronaldo.
Shanks, Fergie, Matt Busby. Doesn't get much bigger than that, does it?
I played with Roy and played against Roy. You would hope he might go mad and get sent off.
Dalglish!
It's a success for these islands, not just English football.
Pitch Invasion. Watch all episodes now on BBC iPlayer.
Yo, listen up. We will not live in a two-dimensional world.
We won't go in one direction or dig where we can say.
We will walk through walls.
We will take a look around us. We will not be confined.
We believe in the path of least limits.
We won't be told how to view the world.
We will experience true freedom. We will not compromise.
We will live the game through our hands. We will be in control of something.
We will change the system.
You're listening to BBC Radio Scotland. It's Connie with you until midday. Today, Lunchtime Live is on the way after that. We're also going to be talking about the do's and don'ts of intermittent fasting. Have you tried this? Is this something maybe that you have as part of your weekly routine? If it is, and you do it right now, let me know how it goes for you and how your fasting works, like how you sort of structure it throughout the week. 80295 is the best way to get in touch.
Get in touch with BBC Radio Scotland.
You can call our free phone number on 08085 92 95 00.
You can text on 80295. Network charges apply.
Mornings on BBC Radio Scotland.
And don't worry, we've got an expert coming up to talk about this, Amanda Hamilton, actually, who can give you some advice if you're thinking to yourself, this is actually something I quite fancy doing. Right, some music.
yours, hit or miss. What's mine is yours, stick or twist. The choice is yours, hit or miss. What's mine is yours. We all get hurt by love, and we all have our cross to bear. But in the name of understanding now, a problem should be shared.
And I'm with you until midday today. Then Lunchtime Live takes over and Vary's with us to tell us what's coming up. Morning to you.
Morning, Connie. Yes, a big day today at the UK COVID inquiry sitting in Scotland, which has been hearing from the former First Minister Nicola Sturgeon. She's still giving evidence and will be for the rest of today. So we'll be bringing you full coverage of what's come out of that. So far, largely focusing on the use of WhatsApp messages and the lack of evidence thereof. So we'll bring you more on that. Also, we'll have the latest in Storm Ingan as it brings a band of intense rain and wind down across the country, causing disruption. We've already had winds further north of Glasgow anyway. We're talking about Annachmore at the moment of 106 miles an hour. Wow. But you can actually see from here it's been coming down from the northwest. It's going to cross down over the Highlands, then the Central Belt around lunchtime. So we'll be bringing you the latest in the weather situation from around the country.
Okay.
We'll also be getting the details from the government and the Northern Ireland deal. Plus, we are still
looking for the monkey.
Looking for the monkey. Yep, you get.
Honestly, every morning when I wake up, I'm just sort of searching, thinking, I hope this wee monkey's been found. But especially when the weather's turning as well.
I know, but it's used to cold weather. I don't know about the rain. No, my cousin today sent me an email from America with an article from the New York Times on the search for the monkey. So it's gone viral.
I'm surprised the monkey's not been named. Do we know has the monkey got a name?
There was an informal name, which is Kiko, which I can't remember what it stands for.
Right.
But,
okay.
The zoo are keeping it quiet.
Well, hopefully Kiko's found, but we'll look forward to the update. Right, okay, Lunchtime Live is on the way. It's Vary and Hayley this afternoon from 12 o'clock. Right, okay, it is time in BBC Radio Scotland on mornings where we'll turn our attention again to consumer issues because our expert Martin James is back with us. Morning, Martin.
Good morning, Connie.
We're getting our money's worth out of you this morning.
I love every minute. It's worth it.
Good. Right. 80295 if you want to send Martin a text, or you can give him a call right now. 08085 92 95 00. Lots of people have done that already. Okay. First one for you is from Ian in Airdrie. Ian says, right, I'm 43. I've got a Volkswagen Tiguan 69 plate. My insurance has jumped from £500 to £800. I've got over 9 years no claims bonus and no accidents or claims. Explain that one.
Okay, well, I can explain it, but none of this is going to land very well, Ian, so I apologise in advance. Insurance for vehicles has just gone absolutely bonkers in the last 6 months. It's actually, if it's a cold comfort, many people are reporting increases of 50% rises or more. So lots and lots of people, in fact, virtually everybody is being quoted at higher amounts. Now, the insurance companies are arguing that that's because of additional costs for repairs and everything else. I would argue that, these massive hundreds of pounds increases doesn't really reflect kind of what's going on with inflation, but this is where we are. Couple of things, though, to help you kind of avoid all of that. First things first, don't stay loyal. If you're still within that window where you can go somewhere else, you can usually negotiate your insurance company down quite a bit the sooner you start negotiating with them. So if you get a letter through and it's 3 to 4 weeks before your policy is due to renew, you can probably knock them down a bit if you threaten to go elsewhere. You can also reduce your insurance. None of these options are brilliant, by the way, I do know this. But you can also reduce your insurance by maybe going for a slightly higher excess rates, so the amount that you pay if you do make a claim. You can look at that dreaded black box that we mentioned before, Connie. That will bring your premiums down, though, again, dystopia-tastic. And then also have a look at things like modifications. If you've got specific things that you've had done to your car that you can take off, even the standard roof rack can make a difference, then that can also help reduce things. But none of these things change the fact that insurance is becoming a bit of a rip-off at the moment.
Right, OK. Back to the tax. This text in no name on it, actually. I can't access my HMRC account online as I had to change my phone number. They use two-factor authentication and in brackets, abusive ex-partner. I can't pass the questions they ask to reset it when I call. Any ideas? I'm definitely going to be late submitting.
Well, do you know, I knew when I mentioned this before, this would touch a nerve. And I have just
quite
been
a few of these on this, actually.
Yeah, and again, once again, dystopia is the word of the day, because this is a nightmare. You know what you're supposed to do under these circumstances. So I've gone on and I've done a little bit more research when it comes to the HMRC system. Just pretend that you've lost everything. Pretend you've lost a user ID, pretend you've lost your password. Go onto the logon page on HMRC for that, and click through the recovery options. Now, obviously, two-factor identification will rely on a telephone number, but this happens to loads of people, so they do have options. Unfortunately, one of those options is posting you the info, which won't help very much today. But there is also on there the option of the chat bot. Just grit your teeth, get through the chat bot. It'll default to an actual person on the web chat, and then you can log the fact that you're trying to get in touch. They'll have a record that you got in touch before the end of the deadline. So even if they do have to actually post you out a new code, then it doesn't matter, because you have at least said that it's not your fault. You have been trying to sort things out. It's all about getting that record on file that you've contacted them, and that's the best way to do it.
OK, this is another one from Jerry, who's talking about the fact that they can't get through. Jerry, I've been on to say I've got a corporation tax deadline. I can't pay it. I'm hoping they'll give me a payment plan. Is that likely? I'm worried sick about it, but I can't get through to talk to anyone just yet.
Jerry, I feel your pain. I had to do this as well with my corporation tax. It was no fun. They can sort out the plan. You can argue the toss with them if you can't get through to them on the phone today. Again, have a crack at that digital assistant, just so that they've got a record that you have been trying to contact them. Though, of course, your phone bills will also show that you've been waiting in a queue to get through on the phone. With the payment plans, they can come up with payment plans outrageously. They do charge interest on those.
Wow.
But the sooner I know, I think it's terrible. But the sooner that's agreed, the better. You can pay in chunks, and there are lots of options that are available there. Do specify if you're in financial difficulties or if you're receiving any other help because you're struggling financially. But once again, I would just say as well, just purely speaking on behalf of the people of Scotland, if you do get through to HMRC, there's a chance you'll get through and be speaking to your fellow countrymen or women. They're having a horrible day, so do be nice to them. Obviously, you get more the nicer you are, so do be a bit fluffy if you do manage to get through.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to remember just generally in life, isn't it? Right, this one from Anne-Marie. I bought a blouse from a designer brand online on the 6th of January. I tried to return it the same day until the same day, right, UK, until today. Not sure what that means. I've called, emailed and left messages, Instagram messages as well. When you need to return, you need to log on to their portal to return things. The portal repeatedly says your item hasn't been delivered. It had. Now they replied 3 days ago to say, sorry, the error has been fixed. I tried to return it saying, sorry, you're out of the time for returning. I've had the reply email which returns. I'm reading this and I'm sort of trying to edit it as I'm speaking. I am back emailing via contact page, Instagram messages. Basically, I think where do I stand now? The blouse was £555. I can't return it. I'm now waiting a reply from them to one of my many emails, calls, posts, etc. I've got them all to keep as proof of how I've been spending my time dealing with this. Is there anything else I can do? I think reading between the lines here, I think what Anne-Marie's saying, and it's quite difficult whenever you're Anne-Marie, I get that if you're texting something really large like that. So basically, I think she's saying that she tried to return it, couldn't. They were saying it wasn't returned in time. What's the options for Anne-Marie?
Well, don't worry, Anne-Marie, you've not bought it. You can fight back with all of this. Just as an aside, Connie, have you noticed that all of the inquiries that we're getting today all relate to technology failing?
Yeah.
There's something to bear in mind there, I think, for government bodies and businesses and everything else. OK, so let's keep this really, really simple. When you want to return something, if you've ordered online, you've got a 14-day window to change your mind. Sometimes the shops will give you a longer one, but it doesn't really matter. The point is, Anne-Marie contacted the shop within that time frame. It's not her fault that their portal isn't working. She's got the proof. So as soon as she can return it back, I just include a letter with it or an email to say, I notified you on this date. It was within the 14-day period. Therefore, I expect a full refund if they've debited her already. If they don't play ball, you can contact, as we often say in this show, you can contact your card provider, or if you've used PayPal, PayPal also have this option, and you can ask for them to charge back the money on the grounds that you have met your requirements under the law and it's the company that messed everything up. So don't give up. Don't be frustrated. It's not your fault that their rubbish technology isn't working, Anne-Marie.
Okay, right. Some other thoughts to bring you, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this one. The fact that the consumer confidence, apparently we're told, is at an all-time high. How are we judging that, given what we're hearing from the text this morning?
No, we shouldn't laugh, should I really?
No.
I'm fairly sure that the listeners are all expressing how they feel about it. So I read this story and I raised an eyebrow, as you can imagine, quite high. So I did a little bit of research, and actually, yes, consumer confidence by this particular measure that this polling company does, it has increased, but it's still in minus numbers. Now, as far as I'm concerned, it's you're talking about Nicholas.
Oh, I'm hoping that we've not lost Martin's line, have we? Martin, are you still with us? Right, what we'll do is we'll try and get Martin back because I've got lots of things still to ask him about. And by the way, if you want to you've still got time, still got about 5 minutes or so if you want to get your text into Martin. If there's anything that you've heard so far from him that you're thinking, oh, that's got me sort of something sparked in your mind, 80295, you can send him a text, or even better, give him a call, 08285 92 95 00. We'll get Martin back shortly. So it gives you a little bit more extra time to try and get your sort of thinking cap on and anything that you want to ask Martin about. It is 11:31.
The Sega Genesis has blast processing. Super Nintendo doesn't. So what's blast processing do? And what if you don't have blast processing?
Hooray, we've managed to get Martin back. Thought we'd lost me as well there. That wouldn't be a good start or a continuation of this show. Right, you're back with us. We lost you in full flow there when you were saying you were looking at these figures and then we didn't hear anything else.
Yeah, well, it's my own fault for criticising technology, isn't it? Obviously, someone pulled the plug on me. So with this particular poll, it's in minus numbers. So that means that things have improved from a very terrible point to a not as terrible, but still not perfect. But a lot of the people I'm speaking to are feeling a little bit more positive because, we know we've only got 2 more months of winter and then we can knock the heating off, hopefully. We've got through a very, very challenging period. Inflation's starting to go down a little bit. So there are reasons to be a little bit more optimistic. But my main concern is we've all struggled for years to get to this point, and it's really kind of what we're left with now. How much money, how much debt do we have? What has the impact of the past few years been? Now, the good news is there's loads of help for all of these things. But whilst we can start to feel a bit more optimistic, it's really important that you seek help if you still need help with some of the impacts of what we've all been through.
What is drip pricing?
Oh, drip pricing is something that is absolutely everywhere. If you've bought concert tickets, if you've been onto an airline to buy some flights, you will have been a victim of drip pricing. It's basically a very Ponzi way of saying charges that they hit you with at the end of the process. So when you order something or when you go shopping around to buy something, you're quoted a price. But if that price increases because of add-on things that you can't avoid when you get to the checkout, that's drip pricing. And the good news is the government has announced that they are going to clamp down on it.
Right, okay. How much of an issue do you think that actually has been? Have we all been victim of this at some point?
Yeah, we all have been. And drip pricing is a massive issue because a lot of the time, say, for example, you're booking tickets to go to a gig or go to an event, and there's a booking fee at the end and there's an admin charge. And it's really annoying, but you roll your eyes because you've got no choice. But if you think about it, all of those charges add up, and they add up to billions upon billions of pounds. Now, it reaches its absolute nadir when it gets to airlines. I've recently booked a flight, and with unavoidable charges, in my opinion, for a hold luggage, cabin bag, which you now have to pay for, and choosing a seat, it added on an extra 65 quid each way onto my flight, which doubled the price. So drip pricing is outrageous, and even though the government have announced that the law is going to change to clamp down on it, for some reason airlines are going to be excluded. So it's really frustrating.
Goodness, do you know what? I saw someone posting about that the other day. They were going on holiday somewhere, and they had 3 kids. So 2 adults and 3 kids, and they were having to pay for every single one to make sure that they all managed to sit together. And obviously some of the children were under 16, so you're having to pay for the pleasure of making sure that your children are safe and feel comfortable on a flight. I mean, that's outrageous, is it not?
It is outrageous. And I consider this to be a family tax. It's completely, lots of us will have experienced that when families have kind of not been able to book the seats, and then they've kind of been spread around an aeroplane. It's very stressful, and everyone's kind of getting annoyed about the whole thing. This should be banned, in my opinion. I am talking to the government about making sure that it's banned. But for now, unfortunately, it is one of those things that we have to factor in. So if you are planning a little winter getaway, or you're looking ahead to the summer holidays, grit your teeth. And when you look at those prices, particularly with the low-cost airlines, imagine adding on 70 quid to that price to get a fair idea of what you're actually going to be paying. Some of the airlines don't actually charge for seat allocation, like BT and things. If you really want to know, type into the Civil Aviation Authority website, just type in CAA airline charges, and you'll get a spreadsheet that has all of them. But again, it's a bit questionable about how legit that is, because they're hiding some of the prices on there.
All right, okay, something to think about for sure. Martin, always good to speak to you. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate your time. Consumer expert there, Martin James, going into lots of detail about lots of different things. Thanks so much for everyone who got in touch with us this morning. Stephen Jordan's back with you tomorrow from 9. He's going to be joined by 80s legend Rick Astley, talking about his latest music and all the things he's got coming up in the next couple of months. Also, it is our GP surgery. Dr. Poonam will be with us to take any of the questions you've got. So have a think if there's anything that you want to ask your GP about. She will be here, Dr. Poonam. And also comedian Greg Hemphill says impotence is the male equivalent to the menopause. How and why does it affect so many men, and does it actually need to be part of our everyday conversation? That's all coming up tomorrow from 9.
All the conversations that matter.
Mornings on BBC Radio Scotland.
Listen on BBC Sounds.
But before that, and before midday today, we're going to be talking about fasting, intermittent fasting. No.
There you are, looking at me. Tell me what you want this to be. It could be everything that your heart desires. All you gotta do is stick around for a while. There's so many things that I wanna do. Take you all around. It's all up to you. If you take my hand and just follow me, there's no telling what we can be. Just you and me. Yeah. Could you be all that I need? Show me what I need to see. If it's alright with you, tell me now, baby. We can take this all the way. Just tell me how. There's so many things that I wanna do. Take you all around. It's all up to you. Yeah, you take my hand and just follow me. There's no telling what we can be. Just you and me. I don't need no one else. Just tell me what you want me to do. No one. Just take your time, I'll understand. Just tell me why. If it's alright with you, I'll let you lead the way. No need to wait, baby, don't hesitate.
For what it's worth, I'ma keep bustin', keep puffin' and loving nothing. If I die, I'ma be high, no tears, all of a sudden bluffing. Never finger on the lever, selling records in J Boogie leather, ready to wreck a nigga whenever. What I need is that scholar that could capitalize my dollar. Capital size when it hit it, make me wanna holler. I do run my mouthpiece with a vengeance. Start repenting if you didn't in the beginning. You should hit your knees and do whatever pleases you, long as you pleasing me. I'm all you need. And the decoy, watch Brad kill and destroy. You the last one to work, but so deaf and bad, boy. Hey.
No one else but you, baby. Believe me.
That's right.
I don't need no one. Baby. No one else but you. Want me to do. Yeah. Believe me. Hey.
It is 20 to 12 here in BBC Radio Scotland. We've been hearing an awful lot about intermittent fasting this week because Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, has let us into his own fasting secrets. He admitted he's a regular faster. He does it from 6 o'clock on a Sunday night through to 5 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. He just gets by with coffee, tea and some water. So it got us thinking, is it the best method, or are there other factors we need to consider when preparing to fast? Let's speak to an expert on this, nutritionist and fasting expert Amanda Hamilton. Morning, Amanda.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for coming to talk to us about this. When we talk about fasting, explain to us a little bit about what we mean. It's not just cutting out food completely. Talk us through what that sort of tends to look like.
So it's cutting out basically calorie intake or energy intake. So, you know, the Rishi Sunak approach, tea, coffee and water typically would be without milk. In other words, milk is a bit that would contain some calories there, the fats, proteins and carbohydrates in milk, but coffee and tea is basically calorie free. So it is going without energy intake. Now, let me just say we all fast, right? Because we all sleep. During sleep, we're not eating, or hopefully we're not. And we break that fast, as in breakfast. So we're all fasting to a degree. It's just whether we choose to extend that out a number of hours, or in his case, obviously, a full day.
What's the benefits of fasting?
Well, I mean, there are lots, but I would say, you know, we have to have a sense of caution as well. It should always be personalised to the individual in terms of the approach to take. But the benefits, broadly speaking, it's linked to reducing inflammation in the body. Obviously, it can help with weight management, either reducing weight and then or maintaining it once the weight is off. But there's also really quite interesting links to longevity. Although a lot of those studies are actually done on animals rather than humans. But overall, in the mix, if we think about it like on the days where we are not eating as much or eating within a smaller window, we're placing kind of less stress on our system, less work, if you like, so giving your bodies a bit of a break. And the flip side of that is it also activates a number of different kind of mechanisms, if you like, that are thought to be almost like a fine-tuning of the body during those fasting hours.
Right, so we hear an awful lot about gut health at the moment, and rightly so, because we're beginning to understand the importance of your microbiome and everything that's happening in the gut. This can be part of that as well, is that right? Making sure that you're giving your gut the chance to recover.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably a little bit sort of too simplistic a way of looking at it, because gut health really does involve everything that we are consuming and even how many aspects of our lifestyle, whether you move or not, how well you sleep, stress levels, all those sorts of things. However, fasting, it might not just be for that amount of time, though, and nobody really knows precisely, but effectively, I think it was the words of Tim Spector actually said, when you fast, a different set of microbes come along and start to heal the lining of the gut. So that's kind of fascinating. I think about it like a changing of the guard. We start to restrict, and different, as I said, different bodily processes are kicked off. It's like, oh, okay, we're not going to be kept busy consuming and digesting, assimilating, eliminating, detoxifying. We're going to do this other stuff. But of course, the reality is it's not black and white. Our bodies are busy all the time. So it's just like going into a different mode. The way that I describe it with my clients is like you're driving along a road in the vehicle that really matters, as in your body, and you're wanting to deviate from the norm, which is you're not fueling all the time like you would your car. And as you deviate from the norm, you're forcing your body to use different fuel sources, not just the food that you're putting in your mouth. It has to pull them from stores, which are glycogen in your liver, a little bit in your muscles, but then also moving energy out of the fat cells and burning that. That's obviously why it can be linked with weight loss. But that can be a bumpy road if you're not used to doing it. So, you know, his approach, Rishi Sunak's approach of really a complete fast for that day is definitely not for everyone. I would say if you're a first-time faster or just want to experiment with this, and bear in mind, we all fast to a degree. It's not like nobody does. We just eke out a few extra hours and say, okay, I'll just push breakfast back a little bit. Or I will maybe stop the evening snacking. That's actually one of the most beneficial, I've got to say, if you have an earlier cutoff of the evening meal, because it deals with a lot of the nighttime snacking that can be the kind of foods that we want to cut down on.
Okay. We've got a few friends of the show who've got some questions for you, if that's okay.
Of course.
Yeah. Okay, let's listen to the first one.
Is it safe to do intermittent fasting if you're trying to get pregnant?
That's a really great question, because actually the research on fasting shows that because it's got this, let's call it a positive stressor in the body in most circumstances, if you think we're telling our body in a way that we have scarcity, there's not enough resources, so let's kick off some other things that we're going to do. That's not a good situation, is it, to tell your body, the female body, hey, there's a lack of resource. So it's really kind of a little bit vague, but fundamentally, I would say if someone is looking at fertility as their key concern, getting into shape, being in good health, all those things, of course, are really important. So intermittent fasting in a small way might be part of that. But personally, my current recommendation is don't go down any more sort of strenuous fasting route if you are trying to get pregnant.
Okay, and does that, I'm assuming that's the case. I mean, I don't know, because obviously this is good because this is why you're here, because you're the expert. But if you are pregnant, is that a no-no if it was fasting a no-no for you, or is that safe to do if it's under maybe your midwife's supervision?
I would suggest no. It's a case of eating regularly, eating healthily, because on the day you're growing a human being in your belly when you're when you're pregnant. So, and I think there's a very natural ebb and flow of needs at that time. I think it's much more important to be in tune with appetite. Regulate appetite, and by just eating whole foods, good foods, everything the developing baby's going to need. So I would say it's definitely not a priority during pregnancy at all. That would be my recommendation.
Is this something also, Amanda, we need to be better at, or try and be better at, listening to actually what our body is telling us? Like, instead of saying it is breakfast time, I must eat, it is lunchtime, I must eat, instead of actually trying to tune in and saying, what do you need right now? Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Or what's going on?
Completely, in every way, I agree with that. Jumping up and down, I agree with that. But also we need to go one step further and think, well, is breakfast really about breakfast type foods, or is it just about food and nourishment? You know, we don't have to have a sugary cereal or a piece of toast for breakfast. You can have anything for breakfast, leftovers from a healthy meal the night before, or indeed delay it a little bit and have something really protein rich. That can be a really good nutrition strategy. So not eating on cue, not overriding, it's 9 a.m, I better have breakfast, even though you don't feel like it. And that's actually part of this whole thing with intermittent fasting. There's an opportunity to pay more attention to appetite. And what's interesting is when you start doing this, if you experiment, especially probably in the morning, skipping breakfast, what you realize is that hunger will come up a little bit. It's almost like a wave, but it does dip back down, and then it will come up probably a little bit stronger as you approach lunch, and obviously have a good lunch. And the theory goes, certainly with weight loss, is that you're no hungrier than you would have been had you also had breakfast. So in other words, once you've had lunch, you're kind of at the same point, but you're in deficit overall, or you've had less intake overall because you skipped your breakfast.
Okay.
So that's why it's kind of quite easy in the morning. I think that was one of the other questions one of your listeners had. Is it easy, better in the morning, better in the evening? The politician's answer is it's good to do both, but for different reasons. The morning tends to be a little bit simpler and easier to manage. We're all a little bit more focused in the morning in some way. But in the evening, actually, an earlier cutoff of dinner definitely helps if you're a nighttime snacker. And I've got to say, over the 20 plus years I've been doing this, evening snacking does seem to be the bigger issue for most people.
Right, okay. I'm going to try and merge two of these questions into one, just because I'm conscious of the time. I want to try and get through as many of these questions as I can. It's funny, isn't it, because we often hear breakfast is the most important meal of the day, but actually it's going back to that, trying to get into the mindset that we're talking about listening to our body. This question is about breakfast again. We heard and we know that Rishi Sunak, as part of his regime, has coffee. Is coffee okay to have instead of a breakfast per se that we were used to sort of knowing and understanding as the sort of normal type breakfast that you were just talking about, like a slice of toast or something?
Yeah, I mean, obviously breakfast is a way to set the day up. So I'm not anti-breakfast. A good nourishing breakfast really helps. And you crave according to what you previously ate in many ways. So if you have a piece of toast with jam on it, guess what? You're going to crave more carbs and sugar. If you have an omelette, guess what? You're not going to feel as hungry for the rest of the day. So there's that kind of fundamental prior to starting to talk about if we skip breakfast and have coffee. I'm definitely not anti-coffee. It's quite personal how well you deal with caffeine or not. There is a kind of broader need to sort of shorten the caffeine window, I would say, just to protect our sleep at the other side. So perhaps from when you wake up to about 12 or 1 o'clock for most people. But yes, it's entirely doable to have a cup of coffee in replacement of breakfast. But we've got to remember that over the piece, we're still trying to feed our body nutrients. So one of the downsides to this, and I remember when fasting kind of really became super trendy, I would literally hear people saying, all I need to do is drink, a diet drink all day and then have my dinner. I was like, oh my gosh, this is not the point. No. This is not the point entirely. We still need to nourish ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's an important thing to remember as part of this, and being kind to our body in some way, I'm assuming as well. Right, this last one, I do a lot of exercise. I run 10k a day. If I go 16 hours without eating, will I still be able to do that? So making sure that they're still able to sort of have the optimum amount of exercise with balancing it with how they nourish their body.
I would say no to that. I think that's too much. I think 10k a day is a lot anyway. That's a separate question. But I would say no. In that case, someone fueling for performance, they're generally better eating a little bit before they go out if they can tolerate it, or indeed fueling not long after. And that 16-hour window is unlikely to be feasible for someone in that situation. But also you're probably just not nourishing enough and getting enough energy in, because that's going to be obviously a high energy demanding activity over and above an everyday thing. So generally speaking, with people doing a lot of sport or a lot of activity in that way, it's better to kind of go back to the staples of 3 meals a day, and perhaps even a snack as well, or a couple of snacks if you're doing that level of activity. So yes, fasting is great. Intermittent fasting is really exciting and interesting, but it does need to be personalised. And personally, I'm an intermittent faster, intermittently, depending on what's going on in life. That's a good flexible approach to take.
Okay. Amanda, thanks so much for your time this morning. I appreciate that.
No worries.
See you later. Bye. Amanda Hamilton, nutritionist and fasting expert there. Hopefully maybe it's got you thinking about something that you might want to do, or maybe it's got you thinking you might want to tweak the fasting that you're already doing. Now, just a little shout out again to our colleagues over on The One Show. Have you been greatly inspired by a book or a piece of literature, they're asking? Perhaps a story from your childhood, it set you on a career path, or a character or a theme from a book maybe inspired you to make a change in your life. We were talking a lot about changes this morning on the phone, and we were talking about quitting. There might even be a beloved title that you've passed down through the generations. Maybe your grandparents, your family have enjoyed that, and it's something you think about and it creates memories for you. The One Show on BBC One would love to hear about why books and storytelling are important to you. So please email your stories. This is the email address, right? theoneshow@bbc.co.uk. That's theoneshow@bbc.co.uk. Now, is bigger really better when it comes to having a family? Joe Wicks seems to think so. Did you see this on social media last night? He's announced that his wife is pregnant with her 4th child. The body coach, as he's also known, took to social media to announce his partner's already 20 weeks pregnant. Congratulations to them. He admitted last year that he would ideally like to have 6 kids. He says the more the merrier. Or is smaller the way to go? What do you think about this? Mum of 4, Tessa Hartman, joins me in the programme. Morning.
Good morning.
I've also got Dr. Martha Diras Collado. Morning, Martha.
Hi, good morning.
Hello, Martha. Nice to speak to you. Right, okay. Tessa, you've got 4 children. I guess it's maybe a bit of a daft question saying, is it the more the merrier for you? I'm guessing the answer might be yes.
Go big and bold or go home. Yes, absolutely. Best thing I've ever done in my life. And very grateful. I think, I will prefix that by saying that I was told I couldn't have any and I've got 4. So I do feel like I've got 4 miracle children, and dysfunctional, chaotic, but fabulous. Yes, absolutely best thing I've ever done.
So at that point where you were thinking, right, this might not happen for me, the change in the flip to going from that feeling and to the fact that you've got now a house full of kids around you, what was that transition like? Because people talk about it's that thing from 1 to 2 that's the hardest. What did you find?
Well, do you know, the two girls, so I'll explain the ages. My girls came first. They're 25 and 26 now. So I had the miracle baby, and the doctor said, that's you got your miracle baby. You're not going to have another one. Relax. And then along
relaxing,
came,
isn't it?
Yes, that's what happened. That was a firework. And so we just thought, great, you know, God's given us a miracle child. We'll be happy with that. And then I had what they thought was an ectopic pregnancy about 9 months later, but it wasn't. It was a cyst and a baby, all very disastrous. Anyway, the baby was fine, but it was like having twins. So when people say to me, what was it like having 4? It was more exhausting having the 2 girls because there was only a year and a bit between them, because it was like twin buggies and twin everything. And there was a big gap before the boys came along. There was 6 years there. So, you know, the girls were great helpers when the boys came along. So it didn't feel like, I think if you have 4 young children or 3 young children, it's definitely more exhausting. And also for the fact that I had girls first. I mean, they were amazing. They were little mummy's helpers, complete right hand. I mean, my eldest, who is now 26, is still very maternal and is my right arm, because I was working all the time. I was running life and working, so it had its moments.
Marta, what does the research tell us about whether or not coming from a larger family is more beneficial to us?
I think what the research talks about is that it doesn't matter how many siblings you have, it's the relationship you have with your parents that matters the most. And I think she's right, and I forgot her name, I'm so sorry, but she's right in the... What was her name, sorry?
Tessa.
Tessa, I think she's totally right about age gap. I think that can make a big difference in terms of parental availability for children. I think if you've got 4 under 4, that's going to be super intense. But if with age gap, it can help. But also you need to think about children's needs being different. So I know that Tessa talks about gender there, but I think it's more about temperament. So some children are more easygoing than others. Some children are quieter or more boisterous than others. And so meeting all of your children's needs is a bit like being a chameleon as a parent. And that can be really exhausting the more children you have and the more different needs they kind of show you.
Yeah, I guess you're learning all the time with that as well. Is there a perfect number, Marta, then?
There is no perfect number, absolutely not. And I think what's right for you as a family is completely unique. And like Tessa was saying so beautifully, I think all children are little miracles. So, you know, one child can be a huge impact and effort on a couple, but, you know, 4 of them might be easy. It just depends who you are.
Tessa, how much do you think that you can guide and shape and mould your kids? Because some people say, you know, you have this idea of what having kids is going to be like until you have them, and they decide, they set the rules.
Well, listen, I have got 4 very distinctive little characters who are all very different with their personalities and their traits. But I think one of the things my Glaswegian mummy told me very early on, because I was working and everything, she said, look, the most difficult thing you have to do in life is discipline your kids. Kids crave discipline. And there's a lot of like liberal thinkers out there that let their kids do what they want and, you know, have a lot of freedom. But in actual fact, I was quite disciplined with the kids because I had no choice. I was working. Bedtimes had to stick. Mealtimes had to stick. You know, there was a lot of rules in place because we're juggling a million things as working mums. That has paid dividends. I think that, you know, I liked trying not to spoil them. They learned from a great work ethic, so they're all very conscientious now as young people. But yeah, you know, there's a couple of firecrackers in there.
Yes.
You always have to be prepared for the unexpected, and you just go with the flow. You just go with the flow.
Brilliant. Listen, thank you so much, both of you, for coming on. Really insightful. Marta, Tessa, have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
day. Bye.
This idea of actually, it's quite, I guess, refreshing that Marta's saying there is no perfect number. It's just actually what works for you and your family. A couple of texts we were talking earlier on about your memory. Ian's been on to say, I keep a diary every day. I've done it for 30 years. Since someone gave me one as a present, a lot of my thoughts I've written down on paper and then transferred over to an A4 notebook. Helps me remember. I think I might need to start doing that. Right, okay, Lunchtime Live is on the way next, and Stephen will be back with you tomorrow morning. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Connie, thank